Trycker på knappen. Och då är vi live. Så vi är live. Men vi ska vänta till precis klockan 7:30. Och då ska vi visa oss. Alltså, 3, 2, 1. Det är vi.
Yes.
Hej. Alltså jag ska byta till engelska, okej?
Yes, we can switch to English at any
Very
time.
good. So hi Mikael, hi. It's really nice to have you here. Our viewers are already there. Oh, I can see there's one comment already telling hi to us. Yes. So, it's really nice to have you here, as I said. And tonight we are going to have a little conversation about Rootsystem, about other things you've wrote, and I think about role-playing games in general.
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very nice to be here. This was absolutely not something I expected to happen, but I'm very happy that it's happening, and I'm very happy to be here. It feels fantastic.
Great to hear. So, I'll just go straight to the point. You are the author of the book I've translated and I'm trying to promote now in Poland through the crowdfunding. But you are the guy who did all of it. You did the main thing. Can you tell in your own words, how do you look at these things? What is Rootsystem and who is this game for?
Rootsystem is a cyberpunk game, a retro cyberpunk game with elements of what I call green post-apocalypse. My main inspiration for the green post-apocalypse part is probably the old comic Akcja, which some may be familiar with from the old 2000 AD comic book and so on. But the idea is that nature hates us, basically. There's been a strange kind of mutation, completely natural, has nothing to do with us, but a new type of kudzu, basically fast-growing and fast-spreading grass type plant, evolved. And its special property is that it has some it can communicate with itself using radio waves, and so it forms like a network. And we all know what happens whenever there's a network of communication in cyberpunk settings. There's some sort of artificial intelligence or some sort of intelligence emerges, and so this fast-spreading, fast-growing grass basically takes over the world. It spreads all over the world, and it forms like a large, like Lovecraftian old one style, gigantic planetary consciousness. It doesn't care about us. Basically, we are like insects. We are like bacteria to it. In the meantime, we humans we had developed a pretty utopian society. We were at peace with nature. We were like post-capitalism, post all of these things, and we had rolled back climate change and like gotten 3D printers and fusion energy worked out and sort of cold fusion. But when the green evolved and pushed us back into large like orcologies. They're like city-sized buildings, basically. And that's where we live now. So that's basically the setting.
Yeah. And we have a lot of problems in that building.
Yeah. It was never constructed for this type of survival. So it's scarcity of resources. we were in a post-scarcity society where everyone had whatever they needed. But now once again, we have scarcity of water, scarcity of energy, and so we get mega corporations and all of this like classical capitalist society and cyber post dystopian society kind of thing. The old nation states, the old democracies, and so on are completely gone. And the only thing left basically are these mega corporations, which control like a part of this arcology.
What I think is the most significant factor in this setting is that we cannot use communication, and we have to use cables. So we have cyberpunk combined with early 90s, I would say, technology.
Yeah, I mean,
completely crazy.
The kind of cyberpunk that I always liked is like I always talk about John Mnemonic, where there's, you get a super advanced technology, like the ability to store stuff in your brain, and dolphins evolving like human-like intelligence and cybernetic enhancements and so on. But on the other hand, you have like fax machines.
Oh yeah.
So this kind of low-tech cyberpunk of like Gibson and his generation of authors always appealed to me. I mean, there's a lot of good post-cyberpunk stories being written that incorporates things like Wi-Fi and like the constant surveillance state that is more likely given our current society, our current technology, and so on. But I wanted to make a game where I could use the stuff I like from like contemporary sci-fi, like 3D printing and that sort of thing. But I didn't have to handle all the complexities that arise from being always online, Internet of Things, Wi-Fi.
All this complex stuff which destroys the flow of the game, I think, right? Because when you have a person who can do everything from their desktop, then where's the game, right? It's like that was my feeling. Do you?
Yeah, I think it's possible to write good cyberpunk stories and good cyberpunk adventure, but I think it becomes more of a challenge, really, because the game master has to they have to take more things into consideration, and it raises the bar for what kind of technology the game master has to be familiar with in order to convey things to the players. I think I would probably be able to GM in that sort of environment because I'm pretty technologically savvy. I know how things work and what you can and can't do and so on. But for average people, I think most of the modern day technology with the Internet of Things and so on, they just don't know what can't be done. So it just becomes some sort of magic.
Magic, yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Basically. And it's hard to set like limits, and players need limits on what they can do. Otherwise, they'll just use they wave their wand and finish the adventure and get all the answers.
So you mentioned players. So if you can tell who is this game for? Who you normally see to play Rootsystem? Is it for advanced players or players who like, I don't know, mechanics, who don't like mechanics, who like adventure, who had to build a character? Who is it for?
Well, I wrote it basically to appeal to myself. I just write games that I would like to play myself. But I think if you're looking for a really crunchy system that has like detailed simulations of everything, then no, this is not going to be your game. You can hack the system, of course. It's built to be extendable and modular, and I've already published several like rule additions that are completely voluntary, of course. But the base system is made to be like simple and fast and get out of the way, basically. Because that's the kind of role player I am. I'm not very focused on the mechanics.
Yeah.
Basically, my focus is on like solving mysteries and player challenge, challenging the players to come up with solutions, to solve mysteries, to understand where they need to go, and so on.
So it's like more like a sandbox, maybe a little slightly more sandbox / investigative setting, where you can build some low technology environment so that the players can still find out and can be still in touch and understand what's going on really, and not have to learn about future technology, right? Is that how?
Yeah, absolutely. Players shouldn't need to like spend a lot of time on the internet and trying to learn new things. I mean, I love when the players do that, but it shouldn't be mandatory to play the game.
Yeah.
So I think most players can understand the basic premises and the basic limitations of this world, basically, and get into the game without much in terms of studying, so to speak. They can be given like half a page of explanations for what exists and what doesn't exist, and then we can just go.
And what type of adventures maybe some of those you played yourself are the best? Was it like something which is happening inside of this archaeology, or maybe going outside, or mixed, or what's the best style of this adventure from your perspective and experience?
I think I'm more of an inside kind of guy. Basically, my general focus as a role player is on like Agatha Christie type mysteries. I mean, murder mysteries, that sort of thing. So every time I write an adventure that's about like exploring outside, that's me going out of my comfort zone and trying something new, basically. I'm trying to learn from the OSR movement, the old school Renaissance movement, and so on.
Yes.
And their focus on like player choice, player agency, challenging the players. I'm reading a lot of blog posts and texts from that movement to try to learn what makes exploration type adventures work. So I've written a few of those, and I think they work kind of well. But I think my expertise where I live, so to speak, is more like mystery solving and investigative type adventures.
If we can just move one step back to the setting, because I had one question from supporters from Poland. He asked about some elements which are important for this world, but you decided not to show them in the core book. So for me, this is a question a little bit about the secrets of this world. Maybe there is something you decided not to put there, and you can now reveal those elements, one or two.
Well, actually, I put a lot of thought into that, and I mean, I love secrets. I love meta plot. I love long campaigns that gradually unveil secret things and so on. Ultimately, I decided that I wasn't going to hide stuff, because I didn't know if this was the only book. Mm-hmm. I mean, this might be the only book I ever write in this series. And that would just leave people hanging. What if people discover this game 10 years from now, 20 years from now? and I mean, okay, that's just half a game. Yeah. And I've seen that happen. I mean, some companies can get away with it. Like, I mean, White Wolf made like an enormous amount of books, and they had an enormous meta plot, and they were able. They knew that they would be able to tie it all together and like give the answers in the end. And they had their like great Gehenna storyline and ending and so on, where they at least tried tying it all together. But I'm just me. I'm just one person. Theoretically, I can always like write another book, but who knows if I have the energy or the inspiration or the money and so on. So actually, there are no secrets beyond. There's a kind of like secrets chapter in the book, Since this is an official stream, I'm not gonna spoil too much from there. But there are. I mean, I haven't detailed every part of the world. I'm focused in the base book mostly on like city one, the Swedish archaeology, the main Swedish archaeology at least. There might be more in Sweden.
Yeah. Exactly.
And like building the general gist of it. And then there are absolutely more archaeologies spread all over the world. I don't know what's in them. I don't know if they survived and which of them evolved in strange ways and so on. What I've done is try to like make a working base that people can work from. So if someone were to make like wanted to make a Rootsystem campaign set in Poland, for instance, then you can absolutely just decide that there's a Krakow archaeology. Absolutely,
I'm sitting in one actually, so that's true. Yeah, I can confirm that.
Yeah, and like the same kind of extrapolation that I did from like Swedish cities. I envisioned that like Gothenburg and Stockholm basically both of them expanded into a giant belt of a mega city, and in the center of Stockholm is the Swedish archaeology. And that kind of extrapolation can be made, I think, in most countries and so on.
Yeah.
I'm when I write my campaign book. I'm currently writing the first part of the grand campaign of Rootsystem, and what I'm focusing on is more like not discovering secrets, but more like exploring ways that the future can happen.
Okay.
Exploring possible routes to maybe not defeating the green, but possibly mitigating it or fighting back. So I have a secret list of like 8 or 10 possibilities that I've come up with, because one of the earliest critiques against this game was that things were too bleak and too black and too depressing. There's no hope and so on. I think some people just wanted some way to throw a ring into Mount Doom and be done with it, and like, finish the game.
Win the game. Win the role-playing game.
That's not the way I generally play role-playing games, but some people want that. So I made a list and come up with some ideas. I mean, one obvious one is, what if we can escape Earth?
The megacorps are not interested in space technology. That's one of the pages in the in the book.
They might be interested, but they don't have the capacity right now.
Okay.
So what would it take for them to get that capacity, and how many people could they actually move into space? I think there's a few throwaway lines about a Martian colony that they've lost contact with long ago. That might turn up in later adventures and later campaigns. So there are, in terms of secrets and plans, it's mostly that sort of thing. Like, how could the future turn out? How could the green be mitigated or fought against, or even co-opted, perhaps? Can it be reprogrammed?
We have a suggestion from one of our listeners. Is green vulnerable to fire? But I think I know the answer.
Yeah, it's vulnerable to fire, but it's all over the world.
Yeah, and it's learning that.
Yeah.
So burned in one place transmits the message how to avoid fire. So sorry.
And it's pretty good at like co-opting other plants and other animals, and use those to defend itself. And there are absolutely plants that have like a lot of water content, or that have like a protective layer and so on. So they'll just transfer the genetic information from those plants, and suddenly every plant in a region that you once burned. Well, now everything's armored. So you're competing against like a planet-wide the defense system, basically, and we're viruses.
Yeah,
and
we are
we're
the virus, exactly. Now
we
roles
are
changed.
people are the virus, and the world is as I mean the green is trying to fight against it. When we try to destroy it, well, it's gonna fight against us. It's learning how to not get killed by us all the time.
Exactly. And we have also Maktfaktor writing that this steady decline is what they love about the game. So good. Some people are just like, masochistic approach, but that's cool too. I wanted to...
The plan for the campaign is basically that each part should present a possibility for things getting better. And if a game master wants to like finish the game, then they can use that solution either as like the big solution or as a part of a bigger solution, or they can just let it fail. Continue on to the next part where another possible solution appears, which also might work.
On my list, I had also questions about mechanics, but we discussed it. The mechanic is just to support this quick pace of the game, right? That's what we were looking. And the mechanic has a name. The name is Krank, right?
Yes.
Where's the name coming from? That was really what I really liked. Is it has something to do with the German word?
Basically, Krank has been my online persona or online name for. And like IRL nickname also since about 2000, 2001, perhaps. I originally stole it from the movie City of the Lost Children.
Okay. Oh, that's a famous one.
Yeah, where there's a character that steals the dreams of children, which I stole his name, and I've been using it ever since. And well, when it came to naming my role-playing system, I just couldn't come up with a name, so I just took my online persona name and I put an asterisk on it.
Okay.
So the name is actually like Krank asterisk.
And that brings me to some. You're not only author of Rootsystem, obviously. You are actually quite productive writer for role-playing games. You and even more importantly, your texts were already translated to Polish. I think you haven't known about this until very recently.
Yeah, I knew some translations had been made, at least to English, but I was completely unaware that other languages had been versions had been made. So I spent some time the other day just searching for my name on Drive-Thru RPG and being absolutely gobsmacked and surprised at the amount of languages and the amount of good reviews and so on. Absolutely.
But I think maybe most of the people who are listening to us, they don't know that you wrote also another system completely your own, which is called Ödesväktarna, which could be like, how to translate that? The Guardians of...
That game will actually come out in English during the summer, perhaps. I'm doing the last few tweaks on the PDF as we speak, and it's called Sentinels of the Weave. I'm generally just call it like CSI Babylon. It's like murder mysteries in a gigantic Babylonian-like city with fantasy tweaks, some magic and some lizard
fantasy
people.
Creatures, right? That's
not a lot actually. There's some demons with some strange features and some lizard people, but no dwarves, no elves.
Lizard people. That's I think very 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 remarkable about that one. Apart from that, you also wrote, and that that uses the crank mechanic as well, or a modification of that. Hmm?
No. Ödesväktarna actually used a game system called Volt.
Oh.
Which was designed by a few friend of mine who I've been working with since like 2000 thereabouts. So that uses the same system basically as my superhero game More Than Human, which is even older.
It's the first, yeah. I think. It's before, because there are More Than Human references in Rootsystem.
Yes.
I know that.
I'm referencing several of my older games in Rootsystem. I mean, my first game was Evolutionens barn, Children of the Evolution. Kind of an anime type, Ghost in the Shell, Bubblegum Crisis, Akira type game. And one of the main villainous mega corporation in that game is called Sigmatech.
There you go. I haven't tracked this one.
Yeah, and that's where the megacorp in Rootsystem comes from. Then we have Null State, which is basically I forget the name now, but it's based on a comic. Anyway, I can tell you later about the name when I remember it. But it's basically about agents that are modern day, just regular people, but they have some sort of special expertise that makes them useful to a global conspiracy of people who save the world from weird technological catastrophes. And I think Null State is mentioned somewhere in Rootsystem as being some kind of precursor to
the coalition. Yeah, I know that one. I spotted too. Exactly. But about newer works, so the one which I started to talk about, it's actually the module to the Tales from the Loop, or Urverseklotet. What's your involvement in that? Can you say something about this one?
Yeah, well, I worked with Free League for a while because they originally published Rootsystem and distributed it and so on. And they asked me to write a scenario for GothCon. I think it's definitely the biggest Swedish role-playing convention. So I had absolutely no. I hadn't written any like convention scenarios before, so I think it became a little bit too big. But I read the game, the Tale from the Loop role-playing game, and I found that it had some very, very nice and good and practical techniques for designing adventures, which is something I always adore games that do. I think too many games have like 3 paragraphs on the dramatic curve, and that's about it. Maybe they have something about how to balance a combat, like a combat encounter. But too many games don't, I think, tell people how to actually build adventures for that game. But Tales from the Loop has an excellent chapter on that. So I just basically followed that. I had like an idea. I'm a big Transformers fan from childhood, and I still have like
who's not a fan of Transformers? So.
I still have a great fascination for Transformers. I'm actually writing another like Transformers inspired game right now, or game world that might turn up. But yeah, I had some idea about like classic stories. Like there are several movies about like toys coming to life, that sort of thing. Small Soldiers, Toy Story, all that jazz. Yeah. So I wanted to make like a kind of horror-like, but also like kind of a Spielberg vibe. Story about like childhood and toys and making hard choices, basically. So I basically just looked at Swedish history at the time, where there were like the typical example I think of the thing that inspired me was in Sweden we had like the government didn't like that there were a lot of like American influences. They wanted like typical Swedish stuff instead of like American movies and TV shows and so on. And so, for instance, we had like a Swedish hamburger chain that were supposed to.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Instead of excuse me. Instead of like McDonald's, we had Swedish clock. And so I envisioned like this is the Swedish answer to Transformers, and so it's a little bit shittier, a little bit not a lot very like original, but it uses like Swedish brand names and so on. It's a Scania truck. It's that sort of thing.
Good.
Yeah, I just
but that question about Free League product, that also brings me to a little bit more general topics before we come back to Rootsystem for a moment to wrap up. But I just wanted to you are an expert. You write a lot of stuff, role playing games. You also publish it, edit. So I think you are the expert. And I think there's a lot of people who also try to write things for themselves. So what's your impression on that? Is it easier to write, or better to write your own stuff from scratch, or is it better to write for a company, for a setting, and or to write adventure, or to write system? What's the best for you, and what's your take on that?
For me personally, I find the easiest thing for me to do is basically just write new games. Which is why I've written a lot more games than I've written adventures, actually. So to me, it's easy. The easiest thing for me personally is just to make a setting, make like a list of things that should be in it. Work with that list until it's workable. Make every point like a small piece of text, and then just the layouts, and it's done. So setting books and is probably the easiest thing for me. But on the other hand, if it's a setting that you know well, and then you get inspired by it, then I think that's absolutely a positive thing. The hardest thing for me is basically I think it's very hard to write adventures, but I think the hardest thing for me in general is everything that happens after the PDF is done. I mean that stuff just doesn't interest me. So working with a company that has the absolute advantage of, well, I can just I wrote last year I wrote the text for Universums öde, Destiny of the Universe. It's a setting book for Sagospelet Rymd, Swedish role playing game for children and young adults. Basically. Yeah, and that was so easy. I just wrote the text and just sent it away, and didn't have to deal with all that jazz. I mean, I love layouting. I love InDesign. I love doing layouts and typography and so on. But I didn't even have to do that. I just wrote my Google Docs and just sent them away, and didn't have to deal with images or paying for illustrations or distributing or printing or anything like that.
So that's a word of warning for the young artists, that it's hard to write, but it's even harder to put it all together. And I can contribute to that, because I can tell you it was a hell of a work, even if I had a lot of stuff from you. I mean, like 90%, and it's still even the translation, to put things, to move through the pages. This is a real lot of work. Yeah, so word of advice. And just one last general question I wanted to ask you, and again, as an expert, what do you think about the current situation with the tabletop role-playing games? Because I have this impression, I'm not even talking about Poland when it's a really big thing right now compared to the previous years, but in the world. So we have Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. We've got Call of Cthulhu going crazy everywhere. We have Fria Ligan, exploring the license style games like Alien. That's a big money behind. And we also have Tales from the Loop on HBO and Mutant games. So most of that coming from Sweden, by the way. But but in general, so how do you think, is this going somewhere for us? Some special? Do you believe that there will be some revival of these games or change of the formats, or maybe something technological about it? Oh yeah, we have virtual tabletops. I forgot about this one.
Yeah, I think that, the current health crisis or whatever.
Let's not mention what's that. No.
We don't want to get deprioritized by YouTube. Due to the current health crisis, I think many people are exploring digital venues and digital tabletops, that sort of thing. And I think a lot of people who have began using that sort of thing now will continue, because they have found that it scratches the itch while they don't have to spend as much time like traveling, planning, that sort of thing. But I think that the fascination people have with role-playing games and the rediscovery, the like almost global rediscovery of the medium, I think has a lot to do with this. I think it's partly a backlash to the digital revolution, basically. I'm a teacher, and I absolutely have students who are very much into computer games, and they have digital communities and so on. But they feel like they've also discovered role-playing games. They play D&D mostly, but some of them play like Blades in the Dark and that sort of thing as well. And I find it fascinating that they think it provides something to them that they can't get from the typical online gaming. It provides like a freedom to explore in a completely different way, and a way to be creative. I mean, my students are learning actually like game design, and they're discovering how hard it is to make digital games. Even if you have like an engine like Unreal Engine or Unity Engine or RPG Maker or whatever, there are a lot of good engines out there that make this job very easy. But there's still a lot of work just to make a single scene or make a single adventure.
Yeah.
You have no budget constraints as a GM. You're not limited to the assets you can create. You're just limited to what you can make up and what you can describe.
So
and
perhaps also the video games now, they also bring back, for some not really understandable way, they bring people back to role-playing game. This offline, right? Like this is what you're suggesting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think a lot of young people are like they're when they think of role-playing games, they use a lot of like computer game imagery and computer game like terminology. And I mean, it's not the way I prefer to play, but I also see that like the rising tide lifts all boats, or whatever the saying is.
Makes sense. Makes perfect sense.
yeah. They like more people play, and some of those who discover like Dungeons and Dragons because they've seen it on like not Tales from the Loop. What's the
Stranger Things? Yeah.
They've seen Stranger Things and seen Dungeons and Dragons, and so on. And a lot of people will just continue playing Dungeons and Dragons, and that's fine. Some of them will want to experiment. Some of them will look at other things and try to find other types of games. And we also have like a lot of people my age and older and younger, of course, that are like they want to rediscover this together with their kids as well.
Okay.
And find it's a way to like play with their kids in a way that's rewarding for both parties, so to speak. So I think that a lot of people I'm talking to that have had like a 10-year hiatus. They haven't played a lot since high school, basically.
Now they have kids and they come back to the hobby. So now we have adults who actually used to play that. So now they pump the market, so to speak. Yeah, I'm actually one of them. I'm this category too. Yeah.
I think it's fascinating. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I'd like to think that I think the role playing will always be around. I think it's not going to die out as a medium. I think it may not. It may go in waves. So like we're like at a quite a high level right now, I think, with a lot of popularity being driven by Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition and a lot of other games like Fredligans Alien seems to do quite well, which is fantastic. And like you say, Tales from the Loop, the TV series, and I think that we're I'm not going to say we're at a crest because that makes it sound like I think we're going to crash.
Yeah, exactly.
But we're at a quite a high level. I don't think this high level will be sustainable. I think we'll have some sort of crest, and then we'll go down again, and then we'll go up again, and down again, and up again.
So after this, I wanted, maybe that's not the best moment to ask this question, but I think we are coming somewhere closer to the end. And I also wanted to ask about the future plans. So we know that it will go ups and downs, but I hope we are now on ups. And you mentioned the campaign book. You mentioned some other stuff you have somewhere hidden. And we also discussed about this one, which I specifically asked for. This is the monster manual. Is it somewhere in your plans? Which of those are in your plans, and when can we expect that to be, at least in Swedish, available?
Yeah, well, if we're talking about specifically Rootsystem related future plans, then my first priority right now is to make the first campaign book happen. Get that done. Next is probably a second edition of the basic rulebook, because it's in the process of being moved from Free League to my own self-publishing, and in that move, I might as well take the time to like fix some errors and make some improvements. So I don't think that's going to take a lot of time, but it'll take some, of course. After that, I haven't actually decided on what to do after that. Possibly part 2 of the campaign. Possibly some small adventures, depending on what I get inspiration for. A monster book might be in the future. Is rolling around back there. I have some very vague plans. Generally, when I work on a book, it always begins like a vague plan, a vague idea. This is something I would like to make. And the preliminary title for the monster manual in Swedish is Fruktansvärda mardrömsböstar och var man hittar dem. As a kind of a it's
horrible beasts and where to find them.
Yeah,
sounds like Harry Potter reference or something like that.
Yeah, it's absolutely a Harry Potter reference. And I've been thinking about what I don't want to just. I mean, I could just commission a bunch of monstrous animal images and put stats under them and pump that out as a monster book, but that doesn't feel like something I would like to have myself. Okay. That's not, to me, that's not interesting. So I want to do something more interesting, perhaps something more focused on like different types of animals and how they interact and what kind of clues they might leave and what kind of stories they might be part
always
of.
Connected to the story, some sort of a story.
Yeah. Because I mean, to me, I've never understood the need some people have for like statted out stuff. I mean, Rootsystem hardly even has any stats. I mean, I can pull stats for any animal out of my ear at any time. I mean, okay, we're meeting a monstrous bat. Okay, it has close combat 3. Fine,
yeah, exactly.
It can take 3 damage. Okay, let's go. Why would anyone want a book with that sort of like that? I mean, I get why someone would like some nice monster art, absolutely, and that we can do. But I'm more interested in like how can this be? How can a monster book be designed in a way that enables design of stories, so that each animal, each creature can't just be used once in one specific single adventure? How can the monsters or animals be reused and like fill different niches and fill different functions in different stories?
We have one viewer commenting this, that it's awesome. That's the comment here. And actually, I have absolutely no clue how I'm going to make all the subtitles for this conversation. I think I will just keep it for like future, I don't know which part of the campaign book. But I have actually 2 more questions. One, which is like personally to me, because I even can see your T-shirt and it has something to do with me. So because in your book it's a lot about very social topics. I had this impression that it's a book about a specific social mechanism, and you present yourself as a person interested in those topics too. I just wanted to ask why we have class fights, why we have so much background in these people, and how it is all connected with maybe your your way of looking at things. Because I was like pretty amazed that it's like we are in a cyberpunk story, and this is like your parents were doing this and that. I think that's normally what we don't look at. What were the parents of Neo in Matrix that much? I think I don't recall that. And here it is actually a thing, and this is interesting. Is it something Swedish or is it something you?
I'm not sure if it's a Swedish thing or just a me thing. I mean, I'm definitely like politically interested, and I'm at least in the current climate, I think I'm considered to be quite a long way to the left, so to speak. I'm definitely like a feminist and a socialist and so on. And I think that, I mean, in my mind, every person is like, we are the sum of our biology and our background. We're taught some things from society. We get some things from genetics. I don't believe in like a soul or in like metaphysics like that. Mm-hmm. I think it is. If you want to make it really simple, we are hardware and software just like everything else. And so my basic thought is that no individual can actually be held like completely responsible for their place in society or even their ideas. We can decide what to do. We can't decide what to think. Mm-hmm. That comes from our programming, so to speak. We can in some limited way we can choose what kind of input we want to give our brains. We can decide what kind of experiences to subject ourselves to, but we can't really decide our sexuality. We can't decide our ideology. That grows from our experience, from our like material circumstances, if you want to get political about it.
This is very, very much reflected in the book, because you have to choose all this, your adolescency events and then events from your job, and then you became a freelancer. Either you went from the top to the freelancer, or you basically came from totally like underclass and then bang, you're a freelancer, and this is what makes you valuable somehow.
Yeah, I wanted to like, I always want I always I'm pretty open about the fact that my political beliefs definitely inform my game design. Always, all games I've written have had like at least some aspect of my political beliefs. And I also, when it comes to like the background generation stuff, I was also inspired by the old Mutant Chronicles role-playing game. I'm not sure
Swedish
if you're
classic.
Swedish classic. Yeah, it was actually my first role-playing game. The first one I played. And that also had like they had like a background generation system based and inspired, I think, by, among other things, Traveller, which I think was one of the first ones to have that kind of system. And I really liked how like a character's background informed who they became, and also not only gave them like stat boosts and skill points, but it made it easy as a player to know who my character is and what kind of opinions might this person have given this experience, given this background. If I've been an officer in the army and then I was kicked out because this role on this table tells me why I was kicked out. Okay, what does that make me? How does my character think about that? Is he bitter about that? Is he angry, or is he relieved? Does he think that getting kicked out of the army was something good?
Yeah.
Did he hate it in the army?
So actually, for me, it gives Rootsystem this kind of depth. Maybe like mechanically, it's not super like cranky that you have these billions of tables, but actually it gives this depth for like if you want to play the character, if you want to focus on the R in RPG, like the role. And that's pretty amazing for me.
Yeah, that's makes me very happy that you think that, because that's basically what was my goal. That's what I wanted to get to. And also I think that it makes it easier to get into the character, and also it gives some hooks to the GM also, because if your characters have actual backgrounds, then they have people from those backgrounds that can ask them for help, or which they can in turn seek out to get information from, or to help them during a mission. And if they've asked for help once, then they're owed a favor. And then they can be used in the next adventure to hook them into the adventure, and so on. So I believe strongly in giving the characters like a place in the world they inhabit, not just lone wolves that have been like plopped down from above, but they have like contacts, they have families, they have ex-girlfriends and ex-boyfriends and so on. They have like the office nemesis. They have the guy who always stole their stapler. And so on. They have all these connections, and that I think makes the role playing, like you say, a bit deeper and a bit more interesting.
Okay, good. So to actually wrap up, my absolutely last question is just a little bit going to these future plans. What will be the Polish element in the campaign book? I'm
gonna have to say that there's actually not much planned at the moment. The next campaign book, the first one, is basically still only in the. It expands the world a bit, because the basic rule book is just like Stockholm, basically, and a little bit around it.
Which is not mentioned actually in the book. It doesn't say it's Stockholm.
No, you can just look at the maps and you can see that it should be. But it's basically the archaeology and the immediate surroundings, basically. The first book will expand this a little bit to include, let's say, Scandinavia. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we'll expand the map a little bit.
Okay.
So, and then the idea is to gradually expand the world, so to speak, with each campaign book.
So good that we are not far from Sweden. It's just one sea apart, so that should cover it.
When I began writing this campaign book, we hadn't spoken yet, I think. So I think now that I know that I have at least one source of good information about Poland, then absolutely when we expand into Europe, which is, I think, the next logical step, then there's a high chance.
Good to hear that. That is actually everything I wanted to ask, what was on my list. I can see that our listeners also mentioned something, that they want the confirmation that the green is intelligent. Perhaps not in the human sense, but certainly like a demon god and alien and malevolent.
I'd probably describe it as like a Lovecraftian entity. I mean, it's probably intelligent, but it's on a level beyond human knowledge. I mean, I don't think we can comprehend the vastness of its intelligence, we wouldn't be able to understand its thoughts or its motivations anymore than we can than an ant can understand us. It's just above and beyond us. And it's turning the earth. It is its brain, basically. It is. There's a reason why all these Gaia cults worship it and believe it to be like Mother Gaia or Mother
Gaia
Earth.
Kultan. Yeah, that's that way.
Yeah. But yeah, I'd say some kind of intelligence, but there'll be some, I think, details about that in the campaign book. But I'm trying to remember whether or not I mentioned the root hearts in the
Root hearts?
basic book. Rothjärtan.
Nej, det finns inte.
No.
So, oops, we let it out. No.
That's not really a problem. Basically, I think that in any, like, just like the human brain has like different processes in it. I mean, the latest theories of how consciousnesses work that I've read are basically that the consciousness is like the sum of a large number of different processes that interact.
Okay.
In like the brain. And that is, consciousness is not actually one thing. It's just a lot of different parts, which, among other things, explains why we are not able to control our subconscious, because the subconscious parts are simply different processes from the self creating parts and so on. And I think that if you blow that up and magnify it to like a planetary system, then we by necessity have a lot of smaller systems that are semi-independent. They're part of the whole, but they're also kind of their own processes. So I absolutely think that there's room for like smaller parts of the big green that are slightly more comprehensible level intelligences.
I see. That sounds even more crazy than the original book, but that's good. That's, I think, all what we all want.
Yeah, well, cyberpunk is all about exploring like the human condition and exploring what it means to be human, and exploring like what consciousness is and where the limits are. Basically, where's the? I mean, it's the classic ship of Prometheus question, for instance. I mean, if you have a ship and you change small parts all over time, and replace small parts, and in the end you have a ship that has no parts from the original, is it still the same ship?
Same ship. Yeah, no, this one. So those questions and the others we can explore in the Rootsystem. We can explore the green, the growth, all these things, and we can do it in Swedish. It's already available, and we can also do it in Polish. And if you like the concept, you can support the action, and if the support is big enough, I think the campaign book will also be published in Polish. And definitely the other add-ons, we didn't talk about this, but there is a lot of more than the basic book. Some of it is already in Polish. Mikael, you have seen it maybe on drive-through, but there is more stuff coming. But for now, I wanted to thank you so much. I wanted to thank to everyone who listened today. Dziękuję wszystkim, którzy słuchali tego på polsku. Och jag vill också tacka för alla de som lyssnade till oss i Sverige. Alltså,
Yes.
tack så mycket, Mikael.
Ja, tack själv.
Dzięki wszystkim i do usłyszenia. I will also say one more thing in Polish. Jeśli słuchaliście nas tak strasznie długo, to zapowiem też tutaj, że planuję zrobić sesję live, w której ja będę mistrzem gry, a kilku znajomych celebrytów będzie graczami. Więc zapraszam i już niedługo wrzucę o tym informację na fejsie. That was it. Thank you so much, Mikael, once again. So,